11,000 meters of crushing darkness pressed against the reinforced hull of the Hesperus 3. I watched the readouts with practiced precision, my eyes scanning the familiar dance of numbers across the control panel. Depth 10,927 meters. External pressure 16,000 pounds per square inch. Hull integrity 98.4%. These were the metrics that mattered at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. These were the numbers keeping us alive. "Systems check complete," I announced, my voice filling the cramped command module. "Ballast stabilized, holding steady at sampling depth." Dr. Aris Thorne nodded without looking up from his geological scanner. "Subsurface density matches projections, Charlie. Sediment layers about 40 meters thick." Beth Riley's fingers danced across her engineering console. "Drilling arm online. Hydraulics are good." Her voice carried the efficient rhythm of constant practice. "Ready when you are, Doc." I trusted this crew. We'd been sealed inside this 11-meter titanium sphere for 8 days, breathing recycled air, surviving on treated water. The Hesperus 3 was state-of-the-art, but nothing could change one harsh truth. We were impossibly isolated, cut off from the surface by nearly 7 miles of ocean. "Initiating core sample procedure," I said, flicking on the external floodlights. Harsh white light pushed back the total black, revealing a strange, desolate landscape of silt. Drilling arm extending. This was supposed to be my last mission. One final, high-paying contract before trading crushing pressure for fresh air. A small plot in Montana was waiting, somewhere quiet where the only pressure was normal air. "Drill bit on seabed," Beth announced. "Vibrations normal." The dull hum of the drill motor shook the frame as it started digging. I monitored our position, making tiny adjustments to the ballast to match the drill's twist. Everything routine. 20 meters deep, Aris reported. "Sediment matches." 30 meters, Beth said minutes later. "Reaching bedrock boundary." I felt the submersible shift slightly as the grind changed. Soft sediment to something hard. A small vibration adjustment, nothing alarming, just ancient rock pushing back. 37 meters, Aris noted. "We should hit bedrock any—" The Hesperus 3 lurched violently. Warning alarms screamed from multiple stations. We pitched forward like we'd been hit. My hands flew over the controls, fighting to steady us as the floor dropped away. "Pressure spike!" Beth shouted above the noise. "Drill broke through something! A cavity!" "Auto systems engaged!" I barked back. The arm snapped back, sealing the hole. Within seconds, the alarms died. The Hesperus 3 settled. "What the hell was that?" I demanded, turning to Aris. The geologist was already scanning his screen. "Underground cavern," he said, his voice steady despite everything. "Pressure spiked when we pierced it. It must have been sealed tight. Some kind of pocket under the seabed." "Age?" Beth asked, rerunning her drill diagnostics. Aris shook his head. "No sample yet. Guessing? Trapped beneath trench sediment and basalt." He paused. "That water could have been locked away for billions of years." I logged the incident and ran system checks. Critical operations normal, hull integrity solid. I tweaked the ballast, bringing us level again. "Abort core here. Try site west." "Affirmative," Aris replied. 200 meters west. Survey shows better structure." I nodded and fired positioning thrusters. As we slid sideways, I noticed a weird taste in my mouth. Sharp, metallic, like biting a penny. I rubbed my tongue against my teeth, thinking my cheek got nipped during the jolt, but no blood. The taste got stronger as I adjusted depth, then faded once we were steady. I checked the air readings. Perfectly clean, 0 contaminants. Just stress, I thought. Just the aftertaste of another routine problem 11,000 meters down. The metallic taste hung like a fog at the edge of my thoughts as we secured the sub for the next drilling run. My tongue kept searching inside my mouth, hunting for a cut or some physical reason, but found nothing. Just that constant copper flavor that seemed to swell and retreat with the Hesperus's movements. "Systems check complete," Beth announced from her station. "Environment reads normal. We're clear to begin the second attempt." I nodded, pushing the taste aside. "Dr. Thorne, ready when you are." Ares flashed a thumbs up, eyes locked on his geology screens. "Take it slower this time. Let's avoid surprises." The drill engaged with its familiar deep thrum vibrating through the deck plates. Everything felt normal, routine, except for that damn taste. Every tiny change in our depth sent it surging back, sharper each time, like swallowing mouthfuls of pennies. 4 hours into the second drilling phase, Beth pulled her headset off roughly. "Everything all right?" I asked. She wrinkled her nose. "Do you smell that? Like burnt sugar? Or ozone?" I breathed in the recycled air. Nothing. "Check the CO2 scrubbers again. Run the diagnostic." "Already did," she said, frowning. 3 times. Everything's functioning optimally." The taste flooded my mouth as we adjusted depth against a current shift. I swallowed hard, trying to force it down. "It's the sonar," Beth said suddenly, eyes wide. "Every ping. I smell it. That can't be right, can it?" A chill ran down my spine. Probably just a frayed wire somewhere bleeding feedback into the airflow. But Beth was already moving, an invisible thread pulling her across the cabin. "It's not the vents. It's everywhere. Only when the sonar hits." Dr. Thorne hadn't said a word for nearly an hour. I glanced over to find him fixed on the external thermal mapping display, fingertips tracing patterns that weren't visible to me. "Aris? You still with us?" He didn't look up. "The temperature shifts. They're beautiful." "What do you mean?" I moved closer. The screen showed standard heat gradients, nothing unusual. "You don't see it?" His voice sounded distant, dreamy. "The colors, the patterns, they dance with the currents." "There are no colors, Aris. It's a standard heat map display." He finally looked at me, his eyes unnervingly bright. "Not the screen, in the water, in the data." The rational, trained part of my brain slammed into emergency mode. 3 crew members displaying sensory weirdness meant either environmental poisoning or shared psychosis. I ordered a full diagnostic sweep of every life support system while Beth continued chasing her phantom scent trails. "Running airborne contaminant tests," I announced, keeping my voice level. "Recalibrating all sensors." The results came back clean. Air composition normal. 0 toxins, 0 leaks, 0 malfunctions. The Hesperus was functioning perfectly. We weren't. Later that night, or what counted for night 11,000 meters down, I lay in my bunk, straining to listen. The usual sounds of the sub surrounded me, the constant hum of the air recyclers, the occasional creak of metal cooling, the soft chirps from the instruments. Then, under it all, something else, a faint bubbling static, like soda water fizzing, or light years distant radio chatter. I sat up, eyes shut, straining to place it. It wasn't from any system. It seemed to push through the hull, straight from the steel. I pressed my palm against the cold wall. The static surged, changed. It wasn't random noise. It had rhythm, structure. The metal was talking. No, that was impossible. You hear it too. I jolted. Beth stood in the doorway, her outline shadowed by the low emergency lights. Hear what? I asked, yanking my hand back. The hull, she said, her voice flat. It's singing. That copper taste flooded my mouth again, overwhelming. Not stress, not contamination, something worse, something deeper.
It's intensifying, isn't it?
Beth whispered.
Whatever's happening to us.
I wanted to deny it, to grasp for the rational explanation that had to be there. But as the hull's static song grew louder, vibrating in my teeth, I knew we hadn't just left something behind below the trench floor. We'd brought a piece of it back, and it was remaking us. We need to call the surface, I said, fighting to keep steady. Request emergency evac. Beth shook her head slowly. Aris won't go. He says we're just starting to see the truth. And Charlie... She paused, eyes glazing over as she tracked an invisible vapor. I'm not sure I want to leave anymore. The images are becoming familiar. Cold dread pooled in my gut. I was losing them, both of them. And the terrifying part, I could feel myself sliding too. Hour by hour, the taste, the sounds, they became less alien. They were starting to make a kind of terrifying sense. I found Aris back in the control room, still mesmerized by his station screen, fingers dancing over thermal data only he could interpret. There's a language to it, he murmured, not looking away. A beautiful, intricate language. Adjusting the stabilizers, the copper taste surged into my mouth again, but this time I realized I could differentiate it. Each distinct pressure wave, each temperature shift carried its own unique flavor. The realization shook me. I wasn't fighting the sensations anymore. I was starting to understand their meaning. And that scared me more than any darkness in the deep. 12 hours since the second drill site. I sat at the main console, staring at the instrument panel without really seeing it. The taste of copper lingered, but it was different now. Layered, complex. I could distinguish the flavor of our current depth from the sharper tang that came with the submersible's minute shifts in position. Each flavor had meaning. Each taste was data. I glanced over at Beth, who hadn't spoken in over 3 hours. She sat with her head tilted, one hand extended toward the sonar display, fingers spread and trembling as if touching something invisible. Her eyes focused on nothing, yet watched everything. Beth? I kept my voice low. You okay? She flinched at the sound, then turned to me with unfocused eyes. It's so loud. The smell is so loud, Charlie. The smell? The pings? She swept her hand through the air. They're like orange and ozone. They bounce and come back changed, sweeter. She took a deep breath through her nose. Can't you smell it? It's filling the whole cabin. I couldn't smell anything beyond the familiar recycled air, but I believed her. The same way I knew the copper in my mouth wasn't just stress, it was information. At the geology station, Aris hadn't moved in hours. His data pad glowed with feverish markings, not words or numbers, but strange, swirling patterns drawn by his finger. Thermal readings from the water outside scrolled across his main display, the usual orange and blue showing temperature shifts. What's happening, Aris? I asked. He didn't look up. The colors are talking, Charlie. They're not random, they're structure. His finger traced a shape in the air. The cold doesn't sit below the warm. They talk to each other, trade things. like a language. Dr. Thorne, I tried, using his title to ground him. Help me understand what we're dealing with. He finally turned, and I almost pulled back. His eyes shifted and stopped in unnatural jerks, like they were chasing invisible things in the air.
It's beautiful, he whispered. We were blind before, our whole lives.
The comms unit chimed. Surface check-in. I pressed the transmit button but froze. Simple words felt distant and empty. Standard phrases I'd used 1,000 times suddenly meant nothing. Hesperus 3, this is topside. Status check, over. I forced the words out. Topside, Hesperus 3. All systems, nominal. My own lie tasted bitter under the copper. Continuing research at current depth. A 7.2-second delay stretched out, and I felt each one of those seconds as a heavy weight in my stomach, an actual dragging pull mirroring the signal time to the surface. I could feel 11,000 meters of ocean in my gut. Copy, Hesperus 3. Next check-in at 0800, you copy? As soon as the transmission ended, Beth jumped up, agitated.
It changed. The smell got sharper.
She stabbed a finger at the sonar display.
They're listening to us, through that thing.
Who's listening? I asked, despite knowing it sounded crazy.
The pressure.
She looked at me as if I were being very slow.
The water. It's always listened.
Aris nodded eagerly. That's it. Maybe not her exact words, but the feeling's right. Information flows both ways all the time. We're just noticing now. He held up his data pad, showing me his confusing scribbles. I'm starting to make sense of it. Cold fear hit me. We were all experiencing the same thing, but filtered through different senses. Beth smelled what Aris saw, what I tasted. We were each building a new language for the same terrifying truth. It's not contamination, I said slowly, the realization hitting hard. It's not poisoning us. It's adaptation. Evolution, Aris said, his voice filled with awe. Forced evolution. The ancient water. It must hold something, compounds trapped for billions of years, changing how our brains work. We're changing? Mutating? I hated the crack in my voice. Aris smiled, a disturbingly calm expression. We're being upgraded, Charlie. Our brains are learning to process reality without the filters. He waved toward his array of screens. These machines, they're primitive. Rough guesses, we don't need them anymore. Like an answer, I suddenly heard it. The low, persistent cracking and fizzing coming from the hull itself. Not through my ears, but directly inside my head. The sound of metal straining, breaking apart under the pressure, bit by bit. The sound of our shield breaking down. And the worst part, it was starting to sound like music. The sound of our shield breaking down. And the worst part, it was starting to sound like music. Each metallic groan of stressed titanium became a low bass note. The microscopic fractures forming along the hull seams provided sharp snaps like percussion. The faint quantum whisper of cold seawater seeping through tiny flaws added a brittle, crystalline high tone no human ear should ever hear. Yet I heard it all. And despite every rational alarm blaring in my mind, it was beautiful.
It's not psychosis,
Aris said softly from his station. He hadn't moved in hours, hadn't needed to check his instruments. His eyes were half closed, pupils wide despite the harsh lights. Then what? My voice sounded flat and rough compared to the intricate hull song surrounding us. Evolution. He turned to me with an expression of deep serenity. We breach a pocket of water isolated for 2 billion years, and suddenly our brains rewire? That's not coincidence, Charlie. We're being upgraded. I felt the pitch of the hull song shift as we drifted 3 meters deeper. The coppery taste in my mouth got stronger. That ancient water, Aris continued, it contained something, not bacteria or viruses, something more basic, information maybe. The original blueprint for sensing reality without any filters. Filters? I managed. Human perception is a survival tactic, Charlie. Our brains evolved to block out most of reality because processing everything would overwhelm us. We developed shortcuts, simplifications. He gestured vaguely at the instrument panels. These machines measure the true reality, but our old brains translated that data into manageable pieces. Sight, sound, just 5 pathetic senses. But now we're experiencing what's always been there, I finished. The raw data itself. Beth suddenly jerked upright from where she'd been curled in the corner. Her head tilted sharply as if listening hard. "It's calling us," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. "What's calling?" I asked, the dread climbing deep into my chest. "The symphony outside." She stood up with unnatural grace, gliding toward the main control panel. "It's perfect, complete. We're just fragments, Charlie, incomplete notes." Her fingers floated over the airlock controls. "We need to join it." The last shrinking human part of my mind screamed, "Beth, stop!" She didn't hesitate. Her fingers punched in the first sequence of the deep-sea airlock override. At 11,000 meters down, the water pressure would crush us like an egg instantly. I lunged across the cabin, grabbing her wrists. She fought back with shocking strength, her eyes not seeing me at all. "Let go!" she shrieked. "You don't understand what's waiting! It's beautiful!" "It's death!" I shouted, struggling to drag her away. "Death is just a human idea," she said, suddenly calm despite our fight. "Out there, there's only change, transformation." We grappled against the console. As we fought, I looked straight into her eyes. There was no madness, only absolute certainty, pure rapture. My grip weakened. In that split second, she wrenched an arm free and slammed her palm against the emergency release. A harsh warning klaxon blared, but like everything else now, it wasn't just sound. It tasted like scorched metal and radiated a deep red that I could feel on my skin. I tackled her to the floor. "Aris, help me!" But Aris remained seated, eyes closed, smiling peacefully as he listened. "Charlie," Beth said softly beneath me, her struggles stopping. "Just listen. Really listen." "No," I gasped, but it was too late. In my desperation, my defenses snapped. The walls I'd built against the sensory flood crumbled away. I wasn't just hearing the hull anymore. I was feeling it. Every straining molecule, every atomic bond under pressure. The temperature differences between the black water outside and our warm bubble sang in colors I couldn't name. The radiation from our gear, the subtle electromagnetic fields, the immense gravitational pull of the Earth's core far below, it all poured into me at once. It was overwhelming, terrifying, utterly blissful. For one breathtaking heartbeat, I understood what Beth and Aris had already accepted. We weren't losing our minds. We were finally waking up. The airlock sequence kept counting down, the robotic voice a tiny scratch in the vast tapestry of sensation. If that door opened, we would die a human death. But what waited outside wasn't the end. It was communion. My hand hovered over the big red abort button. I could stop this, send us crawling back to the surface, back to the dull, filtered world above. But now that I could hear the symphony of the deep ocean, how could I ever go back to silence? The airlock timer hit 10 seconds. Alarm screamed. 11 kilometers of water pressed hungrily against the door. I felt each crushing impact as a unique note in the rising crescendo, and I made my choice. I pulled Beth away from the controls, holding her tight as she fought me. We stumbled back against the cramped navigation console. Her elbow hit my ribs hard, but I barely registered the pain, just another note lost in the sensory storm drowning us both. 9 seconds, the calm, automatic voice announced. Mustering all my strength, I shoved my hand past Beth's thrashing limbs and slammed my palm onto the emergency override. The relentless tick of seconds stopped dead, then flickered back to its starting point. The airlock door stayed closed.
No!
Beth screamed, the sound thick with hurt and panic.
You can't! It's calling us. Can't you hear how beautiful it is?
I could. God help me, I could. But something deeper, some raw, primal will to live still tied to the world I understood, yanked me back. We have to ascend, I said, my voice sounding strange and distant in my own ears. It's death to stay. The hull song hammered against me now, a roaring wall of tortured metal and crushing ocean, flavored sharply like electric sparks and the metallic tang of blood. Warning alarms sang out for oxygen, buckling hull plates and power surges, but even their shrieks were just backdrop noise in that terrifying orchestra. Aris sat cross-legged nearby on the deck, weirdly calm while chaos reigned. His eyes were shut, head tilted slightly as if listening to beloved music. His lips moved, whispering silent words to nothing I could see.
It's evolution, he breathed, eyes still closed. Stop struggling, Charlie. This is what we were meant for.
In my arms, Beth went suddenly limp, her mind shutting down under the impossible flood of information. I carefully maneuvered her into an acceleration couch, buckling the harness around her slack body. Before me glowed the emergency ascent panel, a simple sequence to blow the heavy ballast tanks and hurl us toward the surface. My fingers trembled over the buttons. Each one pulsed with its own seductive hum of color and sound, begging for my full attention. Focus. I needed to focus. It felt like dragging myself through thick tar. Every instinct shrieked to give in, to let the beautiful chaos swallow me. But I forced my hand to obey. My fingers punched the sequence, jabbing the keys with painful slowness. The heavy ballast tanks blew open with a deafening thunderclap of a noise that tasted like raw lightning. The Hesperus 3 bucked wildly, leaping upward at a reckless speed that would have terrified the man I used to be. Now, it was just another ripple in the overwhelming sea of sensation flooding my mind. As we rose, pressure changes painted vivid new colors across my vision. 300 meters up, the hull song started to shift. The deep, booming notes grew fainter, the higher melodies thinning away like smoke. By 1,000 meters, entire layers of sound had vanished from the symphony. 5,000 meters. The music frayed, unraveling note by note, frequency by buzzing frequency. 8,000 meters. The rich tapestry of sensation had faded to a dull echo. 9,000 meters. Then, silence. Not total quiet. The sub's machinery still groaned. Beth breathed shallowly beside me. Aris mumbled softly. But the overwhelming sensory canvas had shattered, collapsing back into the flat, deadened perception I once called normal.
The world felt tight, muted, colorless, and I cried.
Not from relief, from loss. From knowing I'd tasted something beyond imagining and was now condemned to live forever in a world stripped bare. The surface waited, a place of dim colors, weak tastes, thin sounds, and blunt feelings. As the Hesperus 3 climbed the final kilometers toward daylight, I didn't feel saved. I felt cast out, exiled forever from paradise. I looked at my crewmates, wondering if they felt the same emptiness. Beth stirred, her eyes opening to reveal a terrifying emptiness within. Aris stayed still, a peaceful smile frozen on his face. And deep within the fading noise of my own thoughts, the faintest whisper of the abyss called out, pulling me back toward home.